Okay, so our final thing we need to go over is we need to talk about present value. So far, what we have done is we've taken the current value, the present value, and we have found the future value based on what we have today. But another possibility, another calculation that we need to do, or that can be done, is let's say that we know we need a certain amount in the future. Let's say we know that we're going to need $24,000 in the future to put a down payment on a house. And let's say that our goal is for that to happen in 6 years. Now, this only applies if we have a sum of money available to us right now. So let's say that we have an inheritance or something like that comes about, or a large gift, and we have a large amount of money available to us, and we want to know how much to put away. If we can get 7.2% compounded quarterly, how much do we have to put away right now at that rate for 6 years to end up with $24,000 at the end of 6 years? This is not near as difficult as it sounds. It's really no different than the future value. Our future value formula was future value equals the present value times 1 plus the rate divided by x to the power of n, right? Or xt, but we just replace it with n. Well, our present value is equal to the future value divided by 1 plus the rate divided by x to the power of n. So here, our future value is the $24,000 divided by 1 plus, our rate is 7.2%, so 0.072, divided by compounded quarterly, so divided by 4, to the power of 6 years quarterly. 6 times 4 is 24 periods, so the power of 24. So everything goes into the calculator exactly the same, only it is divided by before the parentheses instead of times. 1 plus 0.072 divided by 4, parentheses, power of 24. So 15,641.00. So $15,641 is the amount we would have to start with right now if we were going to leave it in there for 6 years at 7.2% compounded quarterly to give us $24,000 at the end of the 6 years. So find the present value required to have let's say you're looking at an inheritance, you want to put money away for your child's college. So you need $40,000 for college. To have $40,000 in, let's say your kid is 2 years old, so 16 years. And let's say you're investing for 16 years, you're able to find a place that'll give you 9.1% compounded monthly. So find that present value. Let's try that in your notes quick, and we'll talk about it in a couple. So we're going to get the present value. $40,000 divided by 1 plus 0.091 divided by 12 because it is monthly. Now what goes up here for a power? 16 years times 12 because it's monthly gives us what? 192? So 40,000 divided by 1 plus 0.091 divided by 12, or close parentheses, to the power of 192 is 9,378.05. So to have $40,000 in 16 years, if you got 9.1%, you would only need $9,378.05 right now. There is a shortcut for our present value as well. In your book, on page 472, there is a table. This one works just like the future value table. It's present value of $1, so we don't have to worry about messing around with the $100 like we did with the daily compounding. Just like the future value table, this has two weaknesses. It only has certain percents, and it only has a certain number of periods that we can deal with. So let's find a simple one here. Let's find the future value, or the present value, I should say, of $5,000 at 8% compounded quarterly for 4 years. First, what is our rate per period? Well, we have to do our 8% divided by quarterly, so divided by 4. So 2% is our rate per period. Next, what is our number of periods? Well, 4 years times 4 periods a year for quarterly is 16 periods. So look at the table, 2%, 16 periods. This is on page 472, 0.72845 is our table factor. So we will take 5,000 times 0.72845. $72845. 3642.25. So that's off the table. Let's compare that to what we would have got from the formula. 5,000 divided by 1 plus 0.08 divided by 4 for quarterly to the power of 16. 3642.23. So again, we're within a couple cents. Again, in my math lab, if you use the formula instead of the table, you might be off. On the homework, don't worry about it, but on the quiz, let me know and I'll make sure I change that for you. Now, since we're talking about compound interest, there's something I want to show you that I wouldn't feel right if I didn't. Looking around the room, might not have too many people fall in this category, but how many of you are under 22 years of age? A few of you. Okay. Let's say you get out of here and you are 22 years old, which isn't a stretch. We have a lot of graduates at 19 or 20 coming out of here. What is the earliest age you think you can retire? Never? That's kind of what I'm thinking these days. Right now, Social Security has announced that the earliest age I could draw Social Security would be 67. And actually, for me, it's probably going to go up by the time I get there. It's going up like a month for every year after a certain date. I haven't even I've tried not to pay attention to it because it's depressing. But so you guys are looking at probably 67, 68, maybe even higher as your minimum age. Let's go 67. So that is 45 years you're looking at. Now let's consider another scenario. So right now you're a student. You're living fairly cheaply because you got to get by to pay your tuition and all that while you only have so much time that you can work. Well, in a year or two when you graduate, you get that first good job, you're going to be making better money. A lot of students, well, they want to get a nicer car or move into a nicer place or whatever. But what if you didn't do that? What if you stayed living the way you are now, fairly cheaply? How much money do you think you could save up in a year? 4,000, 5,000, more? Let's say $5,000. Let's say you could save $5,000. Now, if you're leaving it there for 45 years, if you look over the last 130, 140 years, the history of the stock market, every 40-year period, even periods that have included the Great Depression, that was the late 20s and early 1930s, even during those periods, every 40-year period has averaged an annual return of between 12 and 13%. So let's say 12%. Stay on the lower end. So let's compound this annually. So that's going to be 1 plus 0.12 divided by 1. That's compounded annually, so it's only once a year. To the power of, well, 45 times 1 is just 45. Anybody want to guess what this is going to turn out to be? $819,938. Over $750,000. That's if you start at age 22. Now, let's say you're like the typical person, gets out of college, decides, hey, you know what? I worked hard to go to college. I've got this good job. I want to have some fun. I'm young. I want to play a little while. So you get a nicer house, a new truck or a new car, maybe a snowmobile or a four-wheeler or whatever, have some toys. And you wait a few years, and at age 32, you decide, now I'm going to save some money for retirement. And at age 32, you put away that same $5,000. Let's assume you can still get 12%, and now it's only going to be 35 years. I took some shortcuts with my formula. You will only get $263,998. Less than a third of what the person who started at 22 would. Now here's the part where you might see me shed a tear. What if you wait till you're my age? I turned 42 this summer. If I put away that $5,000, assuming I can get 12%, anybody want to guess? Here we go. I get $85,000. By waiting till 42, I get about 1/10 as much out of it. Some significant things about compound interest. So let's start out at 21. We'll go up to 67 here. Contribute $5,000 a year. Format this quick. money. So you do 5,000 a year starting at 21. Anybody want to guess? 8.5 million. And that's significant. Of course, $5,000 a year might be pushing it. 12% might be pushing it. Now let's change it to just 10%. If you cut it down to 10%, you're still going to have almost 4.5 million. That 2% makes a huge difference. I wanted to show you that for a couple reasons. One is some people have their money sitting in a bank account where they're making like 2% interest, thinking, oh, the difference between if I could invest it somewhere else and get 7%, it's not worth the effort. Well, here, 2% made a difference of $4 million over 45 years. So yeah, getting an extra couple percent does make a huge difference. It cut it in half, basically, from 8.5 down to 4.3. Now, here's another example I want to show you. Let's say this person here started at 21, put away that 5,000 a year. By the way, you can start doing it at age 16. The only rule is you have to make at least as much as you put away. So if you're 16 years old, if you have a younger brother or sister, or when you have kids of your own, if you only make $700 that year, you can only put away $700 in a retirement account. But still, let's say you start at 21 here, you decide, I'm going to put some money away. And let's say at 28, you decide, you know what, I've done enough. I want to start playing with my money. So from 21 to 27, for 7 years, they put away 5,000. Then they, after that, I'm not going to put anything away. I'm going to play with everything. How much do you think they're going to have? Still 4.5 million. So they put away for 7 years, and then after that, every penny they made, they could play with. Let's go over here. This person says, you know what? I worked hard. I'm going to play. Oop, makes sense. I'll put 0 instead of an O. And then at 28, so that first 7 years, they put away nothing. When this person stops, this person starts. They start at 28 and they put it away for 40 years. Any guesses? Almost $1 million less. So, I'm not trying to preach to you, but, well, I kind of am. Start young. I knew this when I was 18, and I somehow managed to not do it. So I started and then said the money was better spent other places. So hopefully you guys make a better decision. Like I said, my conscience is now clear. I've shown it to you. You know it. Do what you will with it. Yeah. It really is. Here, I'll do this. I had started when I was 18. So let's just put that in. And I'm just going to delete these out. Okay, we'll come back to that. At 22, I actually had 32,000 in that account already. If I had just left that money there, what I did is I decided I wanted to build a house, so I cashed in to build a house. If I had just left that there, I would have been well able to retire. Even if this rate would have gone down, let's say a very, very conservative 9%, still over $1 million. I mean, I'd figured it out once. All I would have needed is like 7.6% average annual yield, and I would have stayed over $1 million in my retirement. So I mean, it's not that hard to do. They said $1,200 a year, starting at what age? 19. Okay. Do you want me to put the interest rate back up to 10 or 12? You could still do 9 or 10 right now. I mean, over 40 years, you're probably still going to get back up to that 11 or 12%. But let's put it at 10. We'll keep it a little bit conservative. I'll put this back down, and I'll come back and I'll fill down the 1,200 a year. This is starting at 19. 1,200 a year, you're looking at 1.1 million. That's at 10%. You'd want to go to a professional investment planner like a Fidelity or Edward Jones or State Farm or somebody that actually does mutual funds and corporate bonds and stuff like that. I'm not an investment expert, so I'm not going to tell you what to invest in, but well, the Roth IRA is the vehicle you put it in, but you still have to invest it somewhere within the Roth IRA. And that's where all my money pretty much is in Roth IRAs. And if you can do it, that is the way to do it because your tax benefits are just tremendous. Because then once you draw it out, there's no taxes due on it at all. So you know exactly how much you have when you pull it out. Like a regular IRA or a 401k, when you take the money out, you still have to pay taxes on it. So you really don't know how much money you have because you don't know for sure what your taxes are going to be. But yeah, definitely a Roth IRA is the way to do it. But you have to, you can invest a Roth IRA in a bank CD if you wanted to, but you're getting like a 0.5% interest right now. But get into a money market at the least, or into corporate bonds or something like that. Corporate bonds right now are paying between 5 and 6%, depending on what the rate the risk is. Some of them are up to 8 or 9%, but you don't want to. The higher the interest rate, the more chance there is the company will default. The poorer credit rating they have. But you can get into mutual funds and stuff like that where you might lose 10, 15% a year, and the next year you might gain 30%. I had in 2008, I think I lost almost 30% on my mutual funds. But over the last 15 years, even with that 30% loss, I've still averaged about 13 or 14% gain per year. Because I had one year where I gained almost 40%. But again, I'm not an investment planner, so I won't tell you to put your money. But that's where I would go, is to someone like that. They're going to take a small commission, but it's worth it. Okay, you guys have suffered enough, I think. There is a new quiz. It is due for tomorrow, Wednesday, at 11:59 p.m. And new homework due for next week, Tuesday. Computer lab next door is open if you guys want to work here. Otherwise, in Richmond, if you want to use your laptops or work in a computer lab, you're welcome to. I'll be here till 8:20. Otherwise,